Okay, I have started the recording. Okay, so now the lecture is being recorded. So we have completed everything regarding the sampling strategies and then sample size. And now once you have data, the next step is always the data processing. How you need to process your data. Once the data is being collected, we discuss each and everything, how we need to collect the data. We discuss each and every options that are available as for data collection. And once you collect the data, the next step is to process that data. We process that data in order to draw some inference from that data. So the purpose of processing is that now we need to answer those questions. We need to meet the objectives of our research. Now we need to test the hypothesis. For all that, once we have the data, we need to process it. There is no option regarding this. So once the data is being collected, now you need to enter your data to any of the software that you want to analyze. My pen got disconnected, so I have to connect it again. Okay. So it's all your choice to enter your data, but majority of the time, we use the Microsoft Excel that comes with Microsoft Office to process the data. So once it got collected, then you need to enter your data in any of the softwares you want. And then carry out some descriptive statistics that describes your data, that tells you about what happened, what's the shape of your data. In order to find the shape, I told you in my previous lecture that one thing is that you need to know where is the center of your data. And second thing, you need to know that how much the data is being spread, dispersion. If you are working with relationship of more than one variable, so it's about two variables, more variables, so you need to look how much the variables, they are correlated with each other. And then you just need to summarize those information in the form of table. And that descriptive statistics gives you lots of sense about the data. And you get a feeling about the data, that where is the center of data, how much it got dispersed, how much the variables they got correlated with each other. But the data you most of the time get is the raw data. It does not make any difference what method of collection you adopted, whether you followed some randomized design, whether you followed non-random probability. So it does not make any difference. It's irrespective of the methods of collection. The information most of the time is collected, it's simply raw data or data. And the first step is always the cleaning of that data. How we ensure the cleaning means just free it from inconsistencies and incompleteness. What do we mean by the inconsistencies and incompleteness? That sometimes you collect the data and you, for example, if this is your questionnaire and you have 10 questions here, maybe there are certain questions that are missing. You just forget to do something. Maybe some wrong information is being entered. So this is all known as the editing. Now you need to edit your data. Just look at your data set. Because it does not make any difference how much the person is trained, but still there is always a possibility of errors. Maybe when you are writing the data, filling the questionnaires, maybe if you either you filled it by yourself or you ask someone else to fill it. Even you can ask your subjects to fill your data set. Maybe they have filled some wrong information here. That is not relevant. So you have to scrutinize each and everything. That the errors, they must be minimum as far as collection errors are concerned. It may be incomplete. Certain questions, they may not be answered. Again, certain questions, for example, where you have the age, maybe that person just missed it, or by mistake, maybe the person is going to write something like this, write an irrelevant information regarding that. Instead of against the age, he may be written as Mirpur. Maybe he wanted to write like this 15 years and he wrote 15 months. So these are all errors that are possible. So you have to edit your data set for errors, for incompleteness, for misclassification. Misclassification mean there is a possibility. For example, if you are carrying your research in 3 districts like Mirpur, Bhimber, and Kotli, and a person is from any of those locations, just by mistake, just when the person was asked that where you are from, and by mistake the person wrote, maybe his family was originated somewhere from Punjab and he wrote the name of that Punjab district. So that is misclassification. That is not in your classification. And then you need to scrutinize your data set for any gaps. And you have to look at each and every questionnaire itself for those gaps. And I use the word even the trained investigator, even you yourself, because there are human errors possible everywhere. Maybe if you interviewed someone, you ask every other question and you missed a single question. In that case, you will not going to get a response. Maybe even if you get an answer, if you interview someone and you get an answer and you just forget to write that. Maybe you classified it wrong. Maybe it's not completed. Maybe information regarding the year is provided, but it's not about month. Maybe something illegal is being written. So you remove all that. Edit all that. So there are certain ways you can minimize those problems. One is by inference. What do I mean by this? That there are certain questions that are related to each other. And it's very, very much possible to find out an answer of one question that is missing from another question. What do I mean by this? That, for example, if in your questionnaire there is one question that asks a person that where you are from, district name, and that question is missing, and there is another question in your questionnaire that will be like this, that name of your village or name of your locality or name of your city. So if in the next question it's written something like that, okay, I'm from Kasguma, in that case you can just decide that it's from Bhimber, although from the district is missing. But you need to be very, very careful when you make inferences like this. When you try to make decision about a question that is missing from another question, very, very careful. For example, if your age is mentioned, and then if in the age someone has written that, okay, the person is 16-year-old, and you want to ask a question about his experience, and there is another question regarding the professional experience in an organization, and you have a question like this, and the person is only 16-year-old, in that case, you can draw an inference that it's not possible to join professional institute at an age of 16. So if you have professional experience classified as 5 years, less than 5 years, between 5 to 10 years, or greater than 10 years, in that case, you can include that person in less than 5 years, because you know she's only 16-year-old. And another way is to by recall, and that is possible when you interviewed yourself and you do remember all of your subjects. That relies just scrutinize your questionnaire and you just look that, okay, I just missed that question in my interview. But at the same time, you remember that the responder has responded in this way. I do remember, but the information is missing in the questionnaire. You can enter that information, but you need to once again very, very careful. And the third way is to go back to the responder once again. Either you can, if you have a contact number, I mean, there are some questionnaires that are possible that ask for their contact number. So if you have some personal contacts or contact number, you can just call that person and ask for that information. Or you just, if it is possible for you, go back to that respondent and ask that question. So when you are editing your data set, there are two ways you can edit your data set. One is that, let's suppose if you have 100 questionnaires and you will going to edit the data set, that you will going to look at the one question, let's suppose question number 1, and you just start screening the question number 1 and you screen the question number 1 of every question. Every questionnaire. Or another way to do it opposite way, that you just screen the questionnaire one by one. You screen all questions of a single responder at a one time. But screening or editing the data is very, very much important when at any time when you have the data. In order to process any data, the first thing is always editing that data. Once you edited that data, the next step is always to code that data. What do you mean? Why would need coding? Let me switch to a blank slide and I will going to explain in more detail. We all experienced a very harsh weather in our past few days. So today it's a wonderful day. Best day for teaching and learning as well. So coding the data, why we need to code the data? For example, when you need to enter in any software, the software, they are most of the time they are case sensitive. Case sensitive means, for example, if you decide to just write down the same thing in any of the software, for example, if I have an information regarding the locality Mirpur, so I have an option of Mirpur. So if I am going to enter directly the Mirpur, there are certain possibilities even with experts that maybe with one information you write the Mirpur in capital words. In another way, you just write the Mirpur in small words. It starts with a small m. And maybe there is someone written like this. In another question, maybe you will going to put a by mistake, you just entered a space and after the space you just entered the Mirpur. So as softwares, they are case sensitive, they will consider this as different from this, as different from this. So when you are entering the data in any software, it's always recommended to code that data in as simple as possible. And that reduces the error, that reduces the possibility of error. So after the data is being cleaned, the next step before entering the data in any software is always to code it. And there are two methods for coding. And when you are coding, normally you have to consider two things. First thing is that when you are coding any data, first thing you need to consider is that on which scale it is being measured. Whether the response of a question is a descriptive. What do we mean by the descriptive? That your question is like this, that if you ask a question something like this, give me your opinion, and the person says, okay, I feel like this, well, so that's a different stuff. And then you can have another question that is like this, that question regarding the gender, and again that question the person can only say about either the male or female. And in case of quantitative, like the age, 15 years. So the first thing you need to consider that what kind of data this is. As far as the descriptive is concerned, normally it's very, very difficult to code it. With categorical data, very, very much easy. You can categorize, you can just code them. Quantitative, most of the time we write as it is. And the second is that what way you want to communicate your readings to your reader. For example, if I have data regarding the age, and in my research, I am interested to know about what are the variations between the children and adults. So I do not need to enter all those ages. I just need to classify the data into children and adults and then code them, and then because I want my readers to just only look in this aspect. Although I have collected the real age of everyone, but that's not useful for me because I want to communicate my data to the readers in the way like children and adults. So first thing, how you want to communicate your information to your reader. And second, what kind of information this is. That these are compulsion before you code any data. And that's once again, it's like repetition, that either it's a quantitative in nature or it's a qualitative data. You just need to decide before coding it. So as far as the qualitative data is concerned, normally either it can be descriptive in nature or it can have a discrete qualitative category, and I already used an example. Maybe there is a discrete qualitative categories. One is the income status, average, below average, anything like this, gender, male, female, religion, Hindus, Muslim, Christians, anything. Attitude towards an issue. Sometimes you ask questions from the people, whether you favor it, whether you are uncertain about it, whether you strongly favor it, whether you strongly disagree with this. So these are all opinions. And you can just classify them and then you can code it. And this is something that for coding, you need to know about the scale. I told you for any statistics, you need to know about the scale on which it is being measured. You have to decide whether it is being measured on nominal scale, ordinal scale, ratio scale, and interval scale. And then it also depends on how you can analyze information obtained in response to a question. That what question was asked, how it was asked, and how the responder answered it. Whether a response was qualitative in nature, whether it's categorical in nature, whether it's a descriptive response, you have to decide about the response. And they are more common when you are doing something in social sciences. So as far as your discrete data set is concerned, normally we convert them into the discrete numerical codes. Although it's possible, I told you that you can enter directly Mirpur in any software, but possibilities error is very, very huge. But you can just decide about 3 locations. You can code those locations as, you can just code the Bimber as 0. You can code the Mirpur as 1. And you can code the Kotli as 3, as 2. With these codes, there is a very, very little chance of error. But secondly, you can also directly write them. There is no issue with this, but you need to be extremely careful because there you are exposed to so many errors. So what are the steps of coding? The first thing you need is you need to have a code book. Please, that's very important. A lot of people, they develop the code, but they miss their code. They forget about their codes. And at the end of the day, they have to re-enter their entire data set. So first, you need to develop a code book, write them on a separate book. What are their real values and how you have coded them. So I will going to code a book like this. I will start the codes like this. That okay, it's question number 3. It's about gender. And here I will going to write down the code. Male represented by 0, female represented by 1. And I will going to keep that code book. And then I will move to another question. Question number 4, location. Bimber, I will going to write it 0, Mirpur 1, Kotli 2. That is for my memory, so that I do not miss anything. And then you need to test your book codes with your real data set. At any time when you are developing a code book, your categories must be mutually exclusive. And that's very, very clear. If you have decided that I will going to code Bimber as 0, there must not be any other district that is also coded with the same thing. So they must be mutually exclusive. And secondly, the category must be exhaustive. What do I mean by this? That you should not have anything that cannot accommodate. For example, if I was going to develop a data like Bimber, Mirpur, Kotli, and in my response, if I have some information regarding the Sudnoti, in that case, I have one information that cannot be accommodated in any of the code. So the codes must be exhaustive, that they manage to accommodate each and every information that is available in that question. There should not be any information. So screen all those possible answers, screen all those possible responses before you develop any codes for them. So 2 compulsory conditions when you develop a code, one is that they must be mutually exclusive and other one is exhaustive. And another thing, once you develop the code, you just need to pre-test them. Just that's the testing. Enter for few questions and then try to analyze that kind of stuff, whether they are useful for you or not. And then before entering the entire data set, that at the end of your data set, you realize that your coding is not appropriate, that will create a huge problem. So it's pre-testing that is always recommended when you develop any codes. And once you coded your book, once you know about each and every question, now you can code all of your data set and look for any discrepancies. So once you have coded your data set, the next step is always the data analysis. How you need to analyze your data set. So let me switch to few examples by performing the Microsoft Excel, and then I will going to move on data analysis. Can you see the Microsoft Excel sheet with the title of data example on your screen? Can you see it on your screen? Please confirm me.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you look at this data, is it visible to everyone? Today I'm just praying that hopefully once a new window will be created, it will be visible on your screen. If you look at this species in this data set, that species is being coded and it's being coded with 0 and 1. Let's suppose in my book, code book, I have written like this: goats 0, sheep 1, and these are all codes for the species. And if you look at this data set once again, as the person was interested in in another way to classify it, so the person has classified them into age groups. These are real ages that are being entered, and here they got classified into age groups. And if you look at this data set, it's being classified into age groups, 3 age groups. Maybe it's less than 1 year that are being included in. One thing is less than 1 year. That may be the group 1, and then between 1 to 2 year, they are being grouped in 2, and then anything that is greater than 2 year, they are being grouped in third group. As this is a data of animals, so they have a grouping like this. So here you can see all those groups. Gender 0 refers to the male and female, and here against those season, you can see one is labeled as. Can you hear my voice? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's heavy raining. So if you consider the seasons they have their own codes, like winter as 1, and then they have summer as 2, and monsoon as 3, and post monsoon as 4. And these are all codes. And this in this way your entire data set. So that's the first subject, that's the entry of second subject, and this is the entry of third subject. So once you have a code, even at that stage you can switch back to the real values as well if you want. For example, if I know the code that 0 refers to the male and 1 refers to the female, what I need to do is that I just need to enter a command of Control F, and then I can replace. For example, I just want to replace 0 with male, and then I just need to click replace all. So here you can see all those 0, they got replaced with male, and then I will going to screen that section, and I will going to write here, I just need to write female, and I just need to replace it with females. So now even a previous code was 0, 1, and now it got replaced appropriately. So in this way, you can just enter your codes, you can just generate your real values, whatever you want. If your data entry is up proper, if your code book is properly maintained, and you have verified your codes. And that concludes my discussion on data coding. Is it clear?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
And then it's all about the data analysis and presentation. In order to analyze your data set, I mean, you can, when you are writing your results, you can analyze your data from time to time. That's one way. That you write about one variable and you look at the one objective, write down all those contents of that objective and then analyze that data set. That's one way to do it. Another way is that analyze the entire data set before writing anything. So it's always desirable to analyze your data set before you carry out any writing. And then that our analysis within some framework, that which variables you want to analyze. That's the first thing. You have to identify those variables. Maybe you are not using all those variables. How you want the analysis, how those cross tabulations they work. And then you have to develop your own concept that which variable are subject to start those procedures. As far as the statistical analysis is concerned, in qualitative research, we do not have the statistical analysis. Rather, it's all about description. You describe stuff. There is no statistical analysis in that section. So what we are left with is only the quantitative data. And trust me, it's very, very rare for a biologist to carry out a qualitative research. In my entire life, I have seen biologists doing the quantitative research. And even when it comes to the other field, 99% of research is all quantitative. Only 1% research is qualitative in nature. And in qualitative research, you do not have a data analysis. And normally, qualitative research takes a very, very long time. Because they are exploratory kind of stuff. So once again, when you have a quantitative data, then you need to carry out the statistical analysis. And then you need, in order to analyze any data set, you look for all those scales. And why we analyze? We analyze to measure, we analyze to make comparison, we analyze to examine the relationship, we analyze to make some forecasting, prediction, we analyze to test hypothesis, we analyze to generate concepts and theories, we analyze to explore, we analyze to control and explain. That's a statement. You do not need to be a mathematician to use statistical techniques. Because we have the computer programs that are very, very much friendly and they do all those calculations and presentation for you. The only thing that you need to know that which test is relevant and what's the function of that specific test. This is an example of a data set where you have all those nominal variables. With except I think the age is somewhere here it's a continuous variable. Other than this, all those nominal variables. So that may be something repetition, that if you have a discrete group and you want to carry out two groups, if you have greater than two groups, criteria test, if your expected count is less than 7%, 75% of the cell, so that is the Fisher exact test. These are all, and then when it comes to the continuous data set, if you are comparing the mean, you can carry out t-test, pair t-test, independent sample t-test, single sample t-test. If you are comparing more than two groups, in that case, you can carry out ANOVA and all those stuff. And if those assumptions of normal distribution, they are not being met, in that case, you have other options too, non-parametric testing. So that depends, what kind of test depends on what scale the data is being measured. And the second thing is that whether the data set has normal distribution or not. So that's analysis. Parametric test means it's a simple word that when it generates a bell-shaped curve. Bell-shaped is this one, normal distribution. When you have majority of the values either on the mean or close to the mean, and when you have very few outliers. So at any time when you have a bell-shaped curve, that means the data is normally distributed. In that case, You have all those parametric testing, ANOVA, t-test, f-test, they all relies on normal distribution. Statistical test, two main branches, one is the descriptive and inferential statistics, we already discussed. And these are all central tendency, and then that concludes my discussion. Do you have any question regarding this? So the section of research methodologies is being completed. If you have any question regarding this, please update me. And now, then we are going to start the report writing. Do you have any question?